Well, hello, everybody out there in Facebook and YouTube land. This is Tim. It's been a while since I've done a video, probably a couple of weeks. I've been watching some other videos other people are putting out there and doing a little study and things, and I came across something a little interesting, and I wanted to kind of tie that together for you a little bit. So on my board behind me tonight, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'm going to read it off for you. I have a very, very important, interesting, better catch this video message for everyone. As you know, I've done a number of videos on Bible prophecy, and I didn't really go in depth on those prophecies. I just kind of gave you what the prophecies are, not exactly how they're being fulfilled, because some are pretty obvious: earthquakes and pestilences and things like that. Some of them not so obvious, but I've just given you the overall picture, kind of a structure. And if you want to go out and study those prophecies individually in depth, you can. However, there is one prophecy you can't get around, and that's the budding of the nation of Israel back in 1948. The budding of the fig tree is what's called. So this is the fig tree generation. And the question thus becomes is, how long is a generation? And there are several different primers for that. Some people take the life of Christ as a generation, 33 years. Obviously, there's a 40-year generation in the Bible. There's another one that's a 70-year and then expands to 80-year generation. And we're going to look closely at that one shortly. And then there's another one that's a 100-year generation. But the date I want you to keep in mind is 1948, with the nation of Israel becoming a nation again after about 2,500 years. This is very, very, very important. So what we're going to look at tonight is the imminent of the rapture, how soon the rapture could possibly happen. Of course, it could happen any moment, could happen before this video ends. I don't know. That would be kind of an interesting thing. But I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you a week time frame, possibly in the very, very near future. I'll show you how that's arrived at. And this is what I'll call a biblical theory. You can actually trace this in the Bible. I'm going to give you the verses. Obviously, you can look at the calendar and kind of decide for yourself. So I'm going to give you about a week snapshot of when possibly the rapture could take place. And so this is going to get very, very, very interesting. Again, let's go with first thing is 1948. That's when Israel becomes a nation. That's going to be in Matthew chapter 24. Jesus talks about the budding of the fig tree down there. And he says, you'll know summer is nigh. Now, we're in the latter part of summer here in the United States. I'm in the Midwest. So I want you to keep 1948 in mind. Then if you go to the book of Psalms, did I get that up there? I didn't get that one up there. Psalms chapter 90. Psalms chapter 90. I think I have it up here. And it is Psalms 90. And I want to come down to, I'll start it in verse 9. For all our days are passed away in thy wrath. We spend our years as a tale that is told. Psalm 90, verse 10. The days of our years are 80 years and 10. And if by reason of strength they be 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away. So 80 would be 70 years. And if by reason of strength 80, that would be 80. So if you take 1948 and add 80 to it, you'll get 2028. Now we're in 2021. Now, a lot of people that are familiar with the rapture and the tribulation in the Bible, and if you study through, it certainly looks like that the rapture precedes the second coming of Christ, but precedes the tribulation as well. So that tribulation is Daniel's 70th week. We know that's a week of 7 years. So 1948 plus 80 is 2028 minus 7, and you have 2021. Okay, so this would mean that the rapture would take place sometime in 2021. Well, we're in September. And some people believe that the rapture is tied to the feast, and there's very good reasons for that. There are certain feasts in the Bible things are tied to. So Christ died at the feast of the Passover. And then the Holy Spirit comes at the Feast of Pentecost. The next major feast after that is Yom Kippur. And then you have the Feast of Tabernacles, also known as the Feast of the Ingathering. This is at the harvest. Well, lo and behold, in 1 Corinthians 15, verses 22 and 23, we have the order of the harvest. And let me go over there for you. 1 Corinthians 15, 22, 23, and through 24. He says, "For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall all be made alive. But every man in his own order. Christ the first fruits." That would be at the resurrection of Christ in Matthew 27:50, where he brought up the Old Testament saints. So that's the first one. The second one, afterward, they that are Christ at his coming. That would be the church. And then verse 24, "Then cometh the end," and that's going to be at the end of the tribulation, "when he shall have delivered up the kingdom to God, even the Father, when he shall have put down all rule and all authority and power." So we see that we have three parts to this harvest. We have what's called a first fruits. Then we have kind of the main harvest, which is they that are Christ at his coming. And then come at the end. That would be at the end of the tribulation. So three parts to that. So the main harvest happens to be in September. If you go back and look in Song of Solomon 2, verses 10 through 13, we get a little more intake and insight on what's going on. He says, "My beloved spake and said unto me, Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away." That would be the rapture. "For lo, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone." That would be past spring. "The flowers appear on the earth, the time of the singing of birds is come, and the voice of the turtles heard in our land. The fig tree putteth forth her green figs, and the vines with tender grape give a good smell." And the time for the harvest, he says, "Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away." The time for the harvest of figs and grapes is mainly in September, when you look at that over the nation of Israel. So we keep pointing towards September. They have August through October is when it happens on that particular harvest there. So there you go. A lot of things working here. So they're looking in September. And then you have to look at, if you look at the time of the Feast of Tabernacles this year, and the Feast of Tabernacles celebrates their journey to the Promised Land and the harvest, would be September. Now, the Feast of Tabernacles this year falls September 20th through September 27th. Today is September 11th. That means in 9 to 16 days is when this Feast of Tabernacles happens in 2021. Could we be that close to the rapture of the church? Now, some people are probably saying out there now, "Tim, no man knows the day or the hour." Well, I'm glad you brought that up or thought that, because I'm going to give you a verse. I'm going to refer to the verse that you're referring to in Matthew 24. And Jesus says, he says this, "Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled." I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to remind you, I gave you right at 100 Bible prophecies that are active today or that have already been fulfilled, like the nation of Israel becoming a nation once again is one that's fulfilled. There's a bunch of active Bible prophecies going on right now. I listed 100 for you. You could go back and look at my videos. So we know it's near. We know it's even at the doors. Jesus says this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Well, if you look at all those signs that he gave you, we're seeing them fulfilled today. And the generation hasn't passed. So anybody born in 1948, their generation's not going to pass away until all the things Christ said were going to happen in Matthew 24, and I think it's Luke 17, Luke 21, and Mark 13, all the signs that he gives you before his second coming. Now, here's the point. He's talking to his disciples there. He's talking to Jews. Now, they eventually live into the church period and are part of the church. However, he's giving signs regarding the nation of Israel. All those signs are given to the Jew, not the church, because the Jew requires a sign. The church doesn't require a sign. We seek out, the Gentiles look after knowledge. The Jews Greeks seek wisdom, the Jews look for the sign. So he gives them those signs. Now it becomes one sign because all these things happen at the same time in that same generation. So they know that that's going on. So those are the signs. They're given to the nation of Israel, not the church. And the reference is the second coming, not the rapture. So nobody knows the day or the hour of the second coming, but we might be able to get a little close hint on the rapture because we can look at all these things. So I'm going to take it another way here. A man named Usher did USSHER. They call Usher's chronology, and he went back and he traced the timeline in the Bible. Now he has Adam at about 4004 BC. Okay, and then he has Jesus showing up at 4 BC, birth of Christ. Some people would have that in 0. There's a calendar change of about 4 years. If you look between the Gregorian calendar, the Jewish calendar, whatever it is, there's about a 4-year discrepancy. So he puts Adam at 4004, Jesus at 4 BC, which means Jesus would have died, been buried, and rose again in 29 AD. Now, you probably know the verse, "A day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day." If you take that thing and look at it 2 days, so 2 days would be 2,000 years, which would bring you up to 2029, which butts right up against 2028. And 2028 minus 7 is 2021 because the tribulation, because the rapture happens before the tribulation. So you have 2028 here, minus 7, you get 2021. And the rapture, again, happens before the tribulation. So you look at rapture in 2021. We know it's likely tied to the feasts. The Feast of Tabernacles is coming up. It's also known as the Feast of the Ingathering, celebrating the harvest, and the journey to the promised land. And heaven is the promised land for the Christian. This also ties in with the gathering of the grapes and the figs. And everything just kind of seems to fit together there for so much. So now that gives you a theory biblically based as to the timing of the rapture. So we could be as little as 9 to 16 days from the rapture taking place from the time of this video. Now I want to give you something else on the rapture. So here's kind of what to look for. It's going to happen quick. I know in a moment, twinkling of an eye and everything like that. There'll be some sound of everything. Now, the rapture means we're caught up to heaven. So we're going to look at, I didn't even put that one up there. 1 Thessalonians 4, 16 and 17. Let me get over there real quick because I want to be real accurate with this. At least we're going to show you exactly how the rapture kind of takes place. And people think, we get caught up in the air and meet him in the clouds, but they don't exactly give you the what all happens. I hit something funny there, so hang on. First Thessalonians chapter 4. And I'll pick it up in verse 16. "For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up." That's where we get the word rapture, which is a Greek word, meaning caught up, "together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore comfort one another with these words." Now, we're caught up in the clouds. And if you watched any of my other videos, you know I've mentioned clouds. And you find out that these clouds are chariots in Psalms 104:3, "who maketh the clouds his chariot." And then in Psalm 68:17, you find that the Lord has 20,000 chariots. So if you got 20,000 flying vehicles, you could probably go around all the time zones of the world, scatter them all over the earth, and pick people up. The other thing is 2 Kings chapter 6. I want you to see this. 2 Kings chapter 6. And we're going to pick it up. We'll pick it up in verse 12. This is Elisha with his servant. And it says, "And one of the servants said, None, my lord, O king, but Elisha the prophet that is in Israel telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. And he said, Go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him. And it was told him, saying, Behold, he is in Dothan. Therefore sent he thither horses and chariots and a great host. Now, host means army. And they came by night and compassed the city about. And so the Elisha is staying with the servant in the town of Dothan, and all of a sudden the king sends a great army of chariots and horses and surrounds the city. And verse 15, this is 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 15. And when the servant of the man of God, and the man of God there is Elisha, was risen early and gone forth, behold, a host, that's an army, compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? And he said, and he answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. Well, he's outnumbered about 10,000 to 2 here physically. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. So what he saw there was that he couldn't see with the naked eye unless the Lord opened his eyes that he could see kind of into a spiritual world, if you will. So we know that we're going to be caught up together with him in the clouds. We know these aren't weather clouds. We know from looking at scriptures earlier that these are chariots that actually pick up people. They're physical things, but however, they're cloaked in invisibility. And they may very well be gathered in our atmosphere right now all over the planet that we can't see them. I know I came through a video on UFOs, and even the government looks at this and they see these aircraft flying real fast and jump out of sight or just disappear right in the sky right before them without moving. This gone, So there's a lot of things going on here, but just wanted to catch you guys up on this theory. I saw this recently and went, man, we are close. But it all kind of fits together because the key being 1948 with Israel, the generation being 80 years, which puts it at 2028 minus 7 for the tribulation, puts us back at 2021. And then the time of the harvest, of the main harvest, is in September. And this year that falls between the 20th and 27th. So I didn't give you a day and an hour. I gave you a week. But again, the day and hour is referring to the second coming, not the rapture of the church. So I wanted you guys to see that as well. But we could be extremely, extremely close, especially with the Usher's chronology working out there. If that works out, then the 2 days will put it at 2029, around there. So that's just how it goes. So it's all kind of lined up with the feast. You can look at the years. You can figure the 1,000 years. Day of the Lord is 1,000 years a day. We know that man has about 6,000 years on earth before the Lord comes back, sets up the millennial reign, which goes from 6,000 to 7,000. Okay, it'd be the 7 days. So 7 days would be 7,000 years. Man's in charge for 6,000 of it, and the Lord comes back and reigns for 1,000. So we know that the Lord comes back before the millennium, and then it's his 1,000 years reign. We also know the tribulation is 7 years before the millennium, or the 7 years preceding the millennium, and then right before the tribulation, the rapture of the church. So I'd say we're getting pretty darn close, closer than we might think. So just thought I'd lay that out for you, and so I appreciate any questions, comments. We'll for sure know in the next 2 weeks, give or take a couple days there. And so that's what I got for you tonight. So the rapture of the church could possibly happen within the next couple of weeks. Wouldn't be a shock. Could happen sooner. It could happen later. But this is just one theory on it. I think it's a somewhat solid theory because you go to 1948 in 80 years, 2028, back off 7, 2021. We'd have to be within the next few months anyway. But knowing what the harvest time is, that falls in September, which we're in September. And then he gives you the date of the Feast of Tabernacles. You can just Google that and get that date there for right now. So that's one theory on it. Could be 4 years off, one way or another. Also, the late theory that I have, I'll just give this to you real quick, is you go from, if you take Christ in 0 AD to 33 AD, and give him 2,000 years. Added to that, you come up with 2033. Then you back off 7 for the trib, you get 2026. Oops, didn't do that too well. So you end up with 2026 as the start of the tribulation, which means the rapture would take place 2026 at somewhere around the Feast of Tabernacles. So we got between 2 weeks and 5 years. That's about if it happens outside that, I don't know what you do. But again, we've got all these active Bible prophecies. You can see the world going south pretty quick with everything that's happening. You see it in the news every day. So you got from anywhere from about 9 days to 5 years, but a pretty solid shot here in the next couple of weeks. We'll see what happens. So if you're out there, you're not saved, you better get saved quick. If you are saved, get busy for the Lord. You guys take care, and we'll see you on the next video if we have one.